For 5 years, my wife, Sophia, had been falling in love with a new intern at the hospital, Julian. Julian, fresh out of medical school, was still learning the ropes. When he prescribed the wrong medication, leaving a patient severely ill, vomiting, and suffering from diarrhea, Sophia defended him. He's just an intern, Ethan. He's young, still finding his feet. It's not a major incident. You're being too petty. Another time, Julian discharged a patient prematurely, leading to a dangerous relapse and a worsening of their condition. Sophia simply brushed it off with a shrug and a casual smile. You're his mentor, aren't you? She'd asked, her tone light. Shouldn't you be taking responsibility for his mistakes? Later, deep into Sophia's pregnancy, a photo appeared on my social media feed. It was a maternity portrait of Sophia, with Julian, both smiling, posing together, his hand resting gently on her swollen belly. The caption, written by Sophia, read, "Only with you can I truly feel complete." 15 years. 10 years of shared youthful romance, building a life together, culminating in 5 years of marriage. It was over. The picture, the caption, the blatant disregard for our life, our child. It was the final, irrefutable confirmation. I picked up my phone and dialed Dr. Evans, the chief physician. "Dr. Evans," I said, my voice steady, surprising even myself. "About the aid project in Africa? I've thought it through. I'm ready. I'll go." As I hung up, a voice startled me. "Who were you talking to? Where are you going?" Sophia stood there, holding a box of cake and a shopping bag containing a tie. I glanced at the 5th anniversary decoration on the cake box and looked away, a dull ache settling in my chest. "Just work," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. Sophia's hand, poised to put down her bag, froze. She looked at me with a strange, questioning expression. "You're acting odd today? And where's my present?" A bitter sigh escaped me, unheard. The moment I saw that maternity photo, the carefully planned candlelit dinner, the thoughtful gift I had spent weeks searching for, had all gone straight into the trash. My silence fueled her frustration. Her face hardened, her voice sharp with annoyance. "Ethan Thompson, what kind of mood are you in? Is this about Julian again? He's just an intern. His background isn't easy. It's not like you. You're a privileged young master from the Shin family. Even without your hospital job, you could live a comfortable life." Her voice grew louder, laced with accusation. "You're so used to your easy life, seeing someone less fortunate, and you just want to tear them down, pick at their struggles. Stop being so unreasonable, stop targeting him, and don't take your temper out on me." Her tirade was punctuated by sharp breaths, and suddenly, she clutched her belly, wincing in discomfort. My instinct, honed over months of doting on her pregnancy, kicked in. I started to move, reaching out to steady her, to check on her. But her hand shot out, slapping mine away. She glared at me, her eyes blazing with anger. "Ethan Thompson," she warned, her voice trembling with fury. "I am warning you. As long as Julian calls me Mrs. Shun, I will protect him. I will stand by him." Her words, delivered with such forceful conviction, struck me like stones thrown at my heart, each one landing with a sharp, stinging pain. My outstretched hand trembled. For a moment before falling limply to my side, a bitter taste filled my mouth. It felt like an eternity before I could speak, my voice raspy, alien to my own ears. "I'm not in a mood, Sophia, and I don't blame you or Julian." The lies came easily, born of exhaustion and a desperate need to end the confrontation. I've just been really busy with work lately. I must have forgotten the anniversary." I forced a semblance of weary apology into my tone. "Please, try to understand." Her angry expression dissolved for a moment, replaced by a look of stunned surprise. She blinked at me, speechless. Since her pregnancy began, reaching its final stage now, I hadn't raised my voice to her, hadn't brought home the stress of my demanding job. I had pampered her, anticipating her every need, rushing her to the hospital for the slightest discomfort. I had turned her into the princess she seemed to believe she was. Then, the shock faded, replaced by a cold, hard cynicism. She laughed, a brittle, humorless sound, and grabbed the cake box, smashing it onto the floor. Cream splattered near my feet. "Ethan Thompson," she spat, her voice venomous. "Marrying you is the biggest regret of my life." She turned and walked away without another glance, slamming the bedroom door shut behind her. I stood there in the silence, the wreckage of the cake at my feet, the wreckage of my life scattered around me. A heavy weight of resentment settled in my chest, a suffocating pressure that refused to dissipate. It was time. Time to let go. Dr. Evans had given me a month to prepare for the Africa project. The due date for Sophia's baby was somewhere within that time frame. To make the passage of time and my departure feel more tangible, more real, I bought a new calendar and hung it on the wall. I wasn't counting the days until the arrival of a new life into our family anymore. I was counting the days until I would leave, until we would be officially, finally, separate. Sophia was gone early the next morning. I saw her later at the hospital, in Julian's office. Her shirt was pulled up, exposing her swollen belly. I had spent countless hours, meticulously applying expensive creams, trying to prevent stretch marks, wanting her to feel beautiful. And now, Julian, the intern, was leaning close, his face inches from her bare skin, smiling, saying the baby was kicking him. Anyone walking by, unaware, might have thought he was the expectant father. Sophia must have sensed my presence, my gaze. Her eyes flickered towards me for a brief, panicked moment before she quickly pushed Julian away, smoothing down her clothes, regaining her composure. I felt nothing, just a profound, unsettling calm. I looked away, picked up a patient's file, and tossed it onto Julian's desk. My voice was strictly professional, devoid of emotion. The documentation I asked you to organize, I said, addressing Julian directly. How many days has it been sitting there? Perhaps my tone was colder than usual. Julian looked flustered, his eyes darting towards Sophia for support. Predictably, Sophia stepped in, positioning herself between me and Julian, her expression protective, almost defiant. I told you, Ethan, stop making Julian do meaningless tasks, she snapped, her voice sharp. You're his mentor, you're supposed to teach him medicine, not dump all the grunt work on him. Behind her, Julian put on a show of meek innocence, reaching out to lightly touch Sophia's hand, speaking with a practiced humility. Mrs. Shun, please don't blame Dr. Shun. It's my fault. I shouldn't have discharged the patient without authorization. His voice trembled slightly, feigning remorse. Dr. Shun comes from a wealthy family. He doesn't understand how hard it is for ordinary people to earn money. Keeping the patient in the hospital longer means more expenses for them. I was just trying to help. He trailed off, his voice catching, making it sound like he was choking back tears, implying his actions were noble, rooted in genuine concern for the less fortunate, while I was the heartless, privileged oppressor. I took a deep breath, ignoring Sophia's warning glare. Is that so? I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Then if that patient had died outside the hospital, would you take responsibility, Julian? Enough, Sophia shouted, her patient's gone. She shoved me hard. I stumbled, my side hitting the corner of a desk. A sharp pain shot up my side. Ethan Thompson, you don't understand suffering, she practically screamed. He had good intentions. Sometimes good intentions lead to mistakes. It's not his fault, and nothing serious happened. A grown man, being so petty and demanding. I'm disgusted by you. In the past, faced with her anger, I would have immediately tried to soothe her, regardless of who was right or wrong. But now I simply rubbed my aching side, a small, ironic smile touching my lips. Don't worry, Sophia, I said softly. From now on, I won't interfere with anything. I didn't spare either of them another glance. I closed the office door quietly, leaving them in their cozy little world, and walked down the hallway to Dr. Evans' office. Dr. Evans had been surprised when I agreed to the Africa project over the phone. Seeing me in person, he looked hesitant, his brow furrowed with concern. Ethan, are you absolutely sure about this? Shouldn't you discuss it with your wife? She's due soon, isn't she? This project, it could be years before you return. I cut him off before he could finish. Dr. Evans, I'm a physician. My responsibility is to my patients. To save lives, to save families. That's what matters. For years, I had placed Sophia's feelings above everything else, above my own needs, even above my commitment as a doctor. But that era was over. I put in my request for leave to prepare for the trip. Dr. Evans approved it, though he still looked uneasy. I wanted to leave as soon as possible. I didn't want to see Julian's face again before I left the country. As I walked out of Dr. Evans' office, I ran into Sophia in the hallway. She glanced at the chief physician's door, then looked at me, a knowing, unpleasant expression on her face. Complaining to the chief physician, were you? She said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Just as I expected. Julian's a poor student. Ethan, his life is hard. Why are you so determined to make things difficult for him? Are you afraid he'll take your position someday? I stopped walking, turning to face her. For a long moment, I just looked at her, searching her eyes, her expression, for any trace of the woman I had loved, any flicker of the connection we once shared. Is that truly how you see me, Sophia? I asked, my voice low, filled with a weary ache. She met my gaze for a second, then squared her shoulders, her tone becoming self-righteous. Can you honestly look me in the eye and say that's not the case? I nodded slowly, a sense of profound disappointment settling in. All right. I turned and walked past her, leaving her standing in the hallway. Perhaps I shouldn't have expected anything different. Back at the empty apartment, I began packing my suitcase. As I sorted through drawers, I found a bundle of letters tied with a ribbon, the letters Sophia and I had exchanged during our long-distance relationship in college. We had chosen writing over calls or texts because Sophia had said it felt more romantic. I had foregone opportunities abroad, the prestigious universities that had offered me scholarships, choosing instead a university in our city, closer to her. Everyone warned us that long-distance relationships rarely survived, that ours was doomed to fail. But we had persevered, defying the odds. 10 years. From clumsy first dates in student cafeterias to the grand vision of walking down the aisle. We had left pieces of our story in every park, every street corner, every quiet cafe. I remembered the time, early in my career at the hospital, when a difficult case escalated into violence. I was caught in the middle, injured. When I woke up, Sophia was there, her face etched with exhaustion and fear. The nurses told me she had rushed to the hospital the moment she heard, crying the whole way, calling my name, asking where her boyfriend was. It was after that incident that she went to a temple, praying for my safety, bringing me a blessed amulet, insisting I keep it with me always. Every birthday wish she made, she told me, was for my safety, for my well-being. I gently touched the framed photos on the shelves, covered in a thin layer of dust, snapshots of our life together, frozen moments of happiness that now felt like artifacts from another era. When did it change? When did the distance between us begin to grow? Perhaps it was the moment Julian entered our lives. Slowly, subtly, he had created a rift, pushing us off the path we had been on. He had encroached upon my home, becoming too familiar with Sophia, too present. The only time I had ever truly lashed out at Sophia was when she went with Julian to a studio to pose for couple-style photos. Julian, sensing my fury, had tried to smooth things over. Professor Shun, don't blame Mrs. Shun, he'd said, his voice dripping with false sincerity. I was just heartbroken after my girlfriend left me. I saw how happy you and Mrs. Shun were, and I was just envious. She was only trying to cheer me up. I was shaking with rage. And Sophia? She had been indifferent, seeing nothing wrong with the situation, dismissing my feelings as an overreaction. It was the first time she had ever truly criticized me. Ethan Thompson, she'd said, her voice cool, impatient. Why are you so petty? Julian is young. He's just dreaming of marriage, of building a life. As his mentor's wife, as his Mrs. Shun, I should be guiding him, showing him what a happy relationship looks like. The sheer absurdity of her words, the twisted logic, had left me speechless. He wants a relationship? I had scoffed. He should get a girlfriend. Why is he looking for it with you? Are you his girlfriend now? That night, Sophia cried and argued for hours. I had never felt so utterly exhausted by her, by the sheer effort of being in a relationship with her. After that incident, something irrevocably broke between us. The trust, the foundation of our decade together, crumbled. I started to feel insecure, jealous of every man she interacted with, constantly asking her to keep her distance from her male friends. But Julian made no effort to be discreet. He constantly told Sophia I was being difficult with him at work, sabotaging his progress. No matter how I explained, how I denied it, she never believed me. Gradually, my presence in her social circle diminished, replaced entirely by Julian's. Even her maternity photos, celebrating the new life we had created, excluded me, featuring Julian instead. I knew then. There was no going back. We were irrevocably broken. The realization hit me with full force, and suddenly, the tears I had held back for so long burst forth, a torrent of grief. They fell onto the aged paper of Sophia's old love letters, blurring the ink, washing away the clumsy words of affection that now felt like cruel jokes. With trembling hands, I gathered the letters, the photos, the remnants of our shared past, and carried them outside. I watched them burn, the flames consuming the memories, the love, the pain, reducing everything to ash. I didn't go back to the hospital for a week. I didn't call Sophia. I didn't check on her, on the impending birth of our child. I arranged to meet some old friends. When they heard about my decision to go to Africa, their concern was palpable. Africa? Ethan, what about Sophia? She's due any day now. You're just leaving? They asked, worried. Can you really just give up on her? I took a long drink, forcing a bright, carefree smile. Give up? On what? I said, my voice perhaps a little too loud, a little too cheerful. I'm not living for her anymore. There's a whole world out there, a lot of important work to do. My friends, seeing my apparent peace, my resolve, seemed relieved. They promised to keep my plans a secret. On my last day in the city, I finalized the divorce agreement. I decided to call Sophia. I booked a table at a restaurant near the hospital, a place we used to frequent early in our relationship. This would be our first real conversation, face to face, in a long time. But even now, sitting across from me, she seemed distracted, impatient, her eyes fixed on her phone, presumably waiting for a message from Julian. Ethan Thompson, why did you call me out here? She asked, her voice sharp. Where have you been all week? I'm due any day. If Julian hadn't been there to look after me, our son might not even be alive right now. My silence only seemed to irritate her further. I didn't call you here to argue, Sophia, I said, trying to maintain calm. I wanted to tell you I'm divorcing you. She cut me off, waving her hand dismissively. Julian said I shouldn't eat this kind of junk food during my final weeks, she said, standing up abruptly. Her eyes suddenly lit up, her gaze fixed on something, or someone, outside. I need to get back to the hospital. Don't wander off these next few days. The doctors said the baby could arrive any time now. As she hurried away, her expression brightened, turning towards the door, towards the person waiting outside. It was Julian. She looked like a young girl rushing to meet her first crush, waving frantically at him. As she ran into his arms, I whispered the words she hadn't waited to hear. I came here to divorce you. Perhaps she didn't hear me over her own excitement, over Julian's welcoming embrace. She had chosen him. I left the signed divorce agreement on the table in the empty restaurant booth and headed out, towards the airport. As I was leaving, a sudden, violent screech of tires ripped through the air. My eyes widened in horror. A truck, out of control, was barreling towards the sidewalk, towards Sophia and Julian. My body reacted before my mind could process. I lunged forward, adrenaline surging, tackling Sophia, pulling her into my arms, shielding her with my body. A jolt of primal fear shot through me. Sophia, I gasped, checking her for injuries, my voice shaking uncontrollably. Are you hurt? The answer was a sharp, stinging slap across my face. I stared at her, stunned. Her eyes were blazing with fury, red-rimmed with tears. She scrambled away from me, crawling towards Julian, who stood relatively unharmed, only slightly scraped. My hand, where I had instinctively blocked a sharp piece of railing, was bleeding profusely, pierced by a jagged metal shard. Ethan Thompson, you absolute lunatic, she shrieked, her voice high-pitched with hysteria. How dare you push Julian away? What if he had been killed? What? About me? Her voice grew sharper, colder. Now I see you clearly. You pushed your own student in front of a truck just to save yourself. You're despicable. I hate you. Her words rained down on me, each one a nail hammered into my heart. Suddenly, she cried out in pain, her body doubling over. Blood stained her dress, a dark patch spreading between her legs. The crowd that had gathered around us gasped. Ignoring the searing pain in my side from the impact, the throbbing in my hand, I forced myself to stand. Sophia was still clutching Julian, sobbing hysterically. I called for an ambulance, my voice strained. Then, I turned away, not looking back, limping away from the chaos, the accusations, the woman I had once loved more than life itself. It was the last thing I would do for her as her husband. Dragging myself back to the empty apartment, I tore the last page off the calendar, the final remaining shred of our shared future. I roughly cleaned and bandaged my wounds, then grabbed my suitcase and headed back to the airport, my body aching, my heart numb. As I boarded the plane, my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from Sophia, a barrage of digital accusations and pleas. I'm going into labor. I'm scared. Where are you? Ethan Thompson, where did you go? They're taking me to the operating room. I'm terrified. You promised you'd be here when I gave birth. Her fear, her vulnerability, leaked through the frantic messages. They continued to pour in until I had to turn off my phone for the flight. Once the plane landed, I turned my phone back on. The moment it connected to the network, a flood of Sophia's messages, missed calls, notifications, overwhelmed the screen. I scrolled through them, a strange calm washing over me. Slowly, deliberately, I deleted every single one. Then, I opened my social media account and posted a single photo. The view from the airport window, the African sky stretching before me. Goodbye to the past, hello to tomorrow. There was a significant time difference between Africa and China. It must still be the middle of the night there. But my phone rang almost immediately after I posted. Sophia's name flashed on the screen. I stared at it for a long moment, taking a deep breath before finally answering. Ethan Thompson, why is your location in Africa? Where are you? Her voice was shaky, confused, but then it hardened, a familiar coldness creeping in. Did you deliberately run off to another country because of the Julian incident? Because of that little thing? You're so petty, Ethan. You'd abandon me giving birth, your own child, over something so trivial. What kind of father are you? Her voice rose in pitch, punctuated by ragged breaths, fueled by anger and perhaps residual labor pain. The ache in my injured arm, my scraped side, flared, pulled. Taut by the tension, listening to her accusations, her complete inability to see her own culpability, I felt a weary exhaustion wash over me. It was pointless. Sophia, I said, cutting through her rant, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. The divorce papers are ready. They're on the table at that restaurant, the one we went to earlier. My name is already signed. You just need to sign yours. Silence. A long, heavy silence stretched across the miles. I waited patiently. Finally, her voice, barely a whisper, trembling with shock, broke the stillness. What? You want a divorce? I believe I've made myself clear. My calm confirmation shattered her remaining composure. Her voice rose to a hysterical shriek. I could hear things being thrown, the muffled sounds of nurses trying to restrain her. Ethan Thompson, what do you mean? I just had your baby, and you're doing this to me. Her voice broke. You were so excited about this child. I gave birth to a boy. He needs a name, your name, and you're saying you want a divorce now. I quietly hung up, cutting off her screams. She was right, in a way. I had been excited about the baby. For months, I had clung to the hope that a child, a shared future, might mend the growing chasm between us, might bring back the love we had lost. But the timing, now, it was all wrong. We were divorcing. Our son would grow up in a broken home. The thought brought a dull ache to my chest. It was true, a decade of my life, my love, for her, had been very real. And I wasn't there for the birth of my own son. The realization stung. My eyes burned, but I blinked back the tears. I wouldn't fight her for custody. Let her keep him. It was the last scrap of dignity I could offer us both, a final, quiet surrender. I waited about 10 minutes in the arrival area before the transport arranged by the aid program arrived. Dr. Evans had recommended me for this specific project, not just because of my general surgical skills, but also because of my expertise in acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. He believed my unique skills could significantly accelerate the team's progress in treating the local population who were facing serious epidemics. Before I left, Dr. Evans had also mentioned there was another doctor already there, a young woman. A genius, he'd called her. When I arrived at the base camp, I met her. Sarah Sue. She was one of the first to volunteer for the project. Dr. Shun. She looked at me, her eyes widening in surprise, her voice light, as if greeting a long-lost friend. I searched my memory, trying to place her. Her face was unfamiliar. My life, for the past decade, had been so consumed by Sophia, by our relationship, that I had paid little attention to other people around me. Sarah seemed to sense my confusion. She smiled softly. You probably don't remember me, she said, her voice gentle. But I remember you. You sponsored me during university. If it weren't for that money, I might have had to drop out. Her words triggered a faint memory. My family business was in medical equipment. My grandfather was a renowned TCM practitioner. I had bypassed opportunities to study abroad to stay closer to Sophia. With some early investments and a bit of business acumen, I had made some extra money. I remembered seeing a list of financially struggling students at the university and offering to sponsor some of them anonymously. It had been years. I had completely forgotten. I managed a polite smile. Your success is your own, Sarah. You earned it through your hard work. You're talented. Even without my help, you would have shown elsewhere. Sarah dismissed my politeness with a wave of her hand. Her gaze fell on my injured hand, wrapped in a makeshift bandage. Her smile vanished. Her expression became serious. You're hurt. Before I could respond, she took my good hand and pulled me towards a tent filled with medical supplies. Dr. Shun, you're a surgeon, aren't you? She said, her voice stern, a hint of disbelief in her tone. Your hand is badly injured. Do you want to lose the use of it? She frowned deeply, her concern palpable despite us having just met moments ago. There was no distance, no awkwardness. She carefully began cleaning and bandaging my wound. Watching her focused expression, her gentle competence, a strange sense of déjà vu washed over me. Sophia. She had once cared for me with such tenderness, such meticulous attention. I closed my eyes for a moment, consciously pushing away the image of Sophia's face, her crying voice. I remained silent as Sarah lectured me about proper wound care, about the risks of infection in this environment. Only after she had finished bandaging my hand did she seem to realize the intensity of her own reaction. A blush crept up her cheeks. Sorry, Dr. Shun, she murmured. I'm just used to dealing with patients. I sometimes forget myself. I didn't mind her bluntness at all. In fact, I felt a sense of gratitude towards her. Sarah glanced at me hesitantly, then, seeing my calm expression, seemed to relax. She showed me to my living quarters, explaining the local health issues, the precautions, the treatment protocols. In the following weeks, I immersed myself in the work. The epidemic was far worse than I had anticipated. Every day was a relentless cycle of diagnosing, treating, and trying to save lives. The work was demanding, exhausting, pushing me to my limits. Gradually, Sophia, the pain of her betrayal, the wreckage of our marriage, faded into the background, replaced by the urgent reality of life and death around me. But she hadn't given up. Not yet. She called me several times a day, long-distance calls filled with accusations and pleas. She even sent photos of our newborn son. Ethan Thompson, are you really not going to acknowledge your own son? I told you, if you stop targeting Julian, we can go back to how things were. She wanted me to apologize to Julian. Even now, she couldn't see beyond her own twisted narrative, her own desires. I rubbed my throbbing temples, the exhaustion settling deep in my bones. I handed off my immediate tasks to Sarah and found a quiet spot outside the main base. I called Sophia. The moment I connected, her voice was filled with a surprising eagerness, a fragile hope. But it quickly shifted, her tone hardening, lowering. Don't think calling me now means I'll just forgive you, Ethan Thompson. I sighed softly. Why was she asking for my forgiveness when I hadn't done anything wrong? I'm not calling for that, Sophia, I said, my voice weary. I'm calling to tell you, you're interfering with my work. You should use this time to sign the divorce papers. I'll make time to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau when I get back. Silence again. For a long time. I waited, about to hang up. Then, her voice, thick with unshed tears, trembling. What did you say? You want to divorce me? I believe I've made myself very clear. My confirmation shattered her control. A wave of furious sobs erupted. I could hear crashes, the sounds of things being thrown, nurses trying to calm her down. Ethan Thompson, what do you mean by this? I just gave birth to your child, and you're doing this to me. Her voice rose in a crescendo of anguish. You were so looking forward to this baby. It's a boy. We were supposed to choose his name together. And now you just say divorce. I quietly hung up. She was right. I had been looking forward to being a father, imagining a future where this new life would bring Sophia and me closer again. But the child had arrived into a world that was already broken. A future without a complete family. The thought was undeniably sad. 10 years. A lifetime, it had felt like. And now, our first child was born, and I was thousands of miles away. My eyes stung, but I held back the tears. I wouldn't fight for custody. It was the last kindness I could offer. I waited for the prearranged transport. About 10 minutes later, the Jeep arrived to take me deeper into the field. I was needed. In the following weeks and months, the work was intense, demanding. The conditions were harsh, the diseases relentless. But paradoxically, despite the hardship, I felt a sense of peace, a freedom I hadn't experienced in years. I wasn't constantly on edge, wondering what Sophia was doing, who she was with. I wasn't consumed by jealousy, by the need to monitor her, to understand her unpredictable moods. The drama with Sophia, with Julian, faded into the background, replaced by the immediate, tangible reality of saving lives. I thought that once I stated my intentions so clearly, the proud, self-centered Sophia would simply sign the papers and move on. But I was wrong. The unexpected happened. The day after our phone call, She showed up at the base camp in Africa. Sarah and I were in the middle of a meeting, discussing prevention strategies, when a commotion erupted outside the main tent. Sophia stood there, her hair disheveled, her clothes torn, her shoes ruined. She looked like she had walked through hell to get here. Before I could react, she grabbed a cup of water from a nearby table and threw it in my face. Her voice was choked with tears, raw with accusation. I was home, struggling through childbirth, and you? You run off under the guise of work and carry on with another woman. Ethan Thompson, you're a liar. She turned on Sarah, her eyes blazing, pulling out her phone and pointing it at Sarah, snapping photos. Medical genius? Don't make me laugh. She's just a homewrecker, seducing my husband. I'll expose you online. She was spitting mad, her face flushed crimson. I stood frozen for a moment, the cold water dripping down my face, the absurdity of her accusations washing over me. Then, anger, cold and hard, settled in. I grabbed her arm and pulled her roughly away from Sarah. I stepped in front of Sarah, shielding her, my eyes fixed on Sophia, my voice flat and cold. Sophia, I said, my voice low. This isn't the place for this. Go home. Now. She stared at me, stunned by my lack of warmth, my immediate defense of Sarah. Tears welled in her eyes, brimming with a profound sense of injustice. Ethan Thompson, I left the hospital against doctor's orders. I flew here, couldn't find my way, couldn't understand anyone. Do you know how hard I looked for you? She cried, her voice filled with anguish. And you're here, with another woman? How can you do this to me? Her twisted logic, her ability to turn everything back onto me, was breathtaking. She always saw herself as the victim. I remembered confronting her about Julian, and her casual dismissal of my feelings. Now faced with her ridiculous accusations, I felt no need to explain, no desire to justify myself. But Sarah's reputation, her honor as a doctor, was being unfairly attacked. I couldn't let Sophia spread lies about her. I tried to take her phone, but she pulled away, dodging me. She looked at me warily. Ethan Thompson, you always used to put me first. You always indulged me. And now? Now you're defending her like this? You've changed. She was right. I had changed. But it wasn't my heart that had changed. It was my perspective. My heart had simply stopped beating for her. I took a deep breath, my voice hardening with resolve. If you post those photos online, Sophia, I said, each word deliberate, measured, I will sue you for defamation. I will press charges. Sophia's body swayed. She stumbled back, collapsing onto the ground, her face pale, her fingers trembling as she pointed at Sarah, standing quietly behind me. You're divorcing me for her? I glanced back at Sarah. She was perceptive, understanding. She turned and quietly slipped back into the tent, leaving us alone. I knelt down, looking Sophia directly in the eye. I knew she wouldn't leave until I gave her some form of explanation, however painful. I sighed a weary sound. My voice was calm, factual. I saw the photos you posted on your social media, Sophia. The maternity pictures. You were pregnant. Your emotions were volatile. You forgot to block me. I met her gaze steadily. I know about you and Julian. Everything. I know what you've been doing. Her face went from pale to ashen as I spoke, each sentence stripping away her carefully constructed denial. Her lips trembled. She reached out, grabbing my hand, her eyes wide, desperate. No, Ethan, it's not what you think. Husband, she whispered, shaking her head violently. Her explanation was weak, flimsy. I didn't need to hear it. I gently, one by one, peeled her fingers from my sleeve, releasing myself from her grasp. She watched me, her eyes shattered, tears streaming down her face. I stood up and walked into the tent, leaving her kneeling there in the dirt. A woman as proud and arrogant as Sophia would never truly accept being left, especially when she was in the wrong. She would cling, deny, and try to twist the narrative. And she did. For the next few weeks, she followed me wherever I went, a persistent shadow. Even when our work took us to areas with active outbreaks, she trailed behind, oblivious to the danger, desperate to regain control. Sarah approached me, concern etched on her face. Dr. Shun, she said softly, I don't know what's going on between you and your wife, but this environment is dangerous. She's just given birth. I knew Sophia was listening, probably hiding just outside the tent, hoping to overhear something that would give her leverage. I continued working on my reports, not looking up. If she's not afraid of dying, she can stay, I said, my voice clear enough to carry to where she was hiding. Don't worry about her. My words, delivered without emotion, were calculated to wound her pride. It worked. She emerged from her hiding spot, her face flushed with fury. Ethan Thompson, what do you mean? I haven't agreed to a divorce. Are you actually hoping I'll die? Her endless circling, her inability to let go, was becoming embarrassing, a distraction for the entire team. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice calm, measured. Sophia, I shouldn't have to repeat myself. I am serious about divorcing you. I will not fight for custody of our son. He needs his mother right now. I have work to do. Please, leave. Her face was white, devastated. Sarah stood beside me, looking uncomfortable, but supportive. She tried to reason with Sophia. Ms. Jiang, we're doctors here. We're trying to save lives. This isn't a place for personal drama. You're interfering with our work. But Sophia was beyond reason. With a frustrated cry, she pushed Sarah aside and lunged at me, wrapping her arms tightly around me from behind. Her tears soaked into my shirt. How many times do I have to tell you, Ethan? Why can't you be understanding, like before? Nothing happened between Julian and me. A suffocating pressure built in my chest. I forcefully pulled her arms away from me. She stumbled back, staring at me, surprised by my strength, my rejection. In her shocked gaze, I lifted the sleeve of my shirt. Beneath it, angry, jagged scars stretched across my forearm and side. The results of being thrown against the sharp metal railing during the accident. That truck was moving fast, I said, my voice low. Without me, you would be dead. Do you know how valuable a doctor's hands are? I didn't want to save you, but my body, my instinct, reacted. And you? How did you treat me? My voice hardened. You said if anything happened to Julian, I would have to atone for it. Well, Julian is fine. I am not. We're even, Sophia. We owe each other nothing. My words were quick, sharp, born of frustration and the deep-seated pain of her reaction after I saved her life. I hadn't intended to show her the injuries, to dredge up that horrific moment, but her relentless denial, her self-pity, was unbearable. She stared at the scars, her eyes wide with horror, her body trembling uncontrollably. She reached out a hand, hesitant, as if to touch the wounds, then pulled back, looking lost, unsure what to say. I thought you were just being jealous, she stammered, her voice shaky. And you were always hard on Julian at work. I was upset. I said things in the heat of the moment. They weren't true. She stamped her foot, growing agitated, desperate to make me believe her. She began to swear, promising anything. But I remained unmoved. You say I was always hard on him, I said, my voice calm. Do you have proof? She looked confused, unable to answer. I sighed inwardly. I have plenty of proof, I said, pulling out my phone. I showed her a video recording, footage of Julian deliberately taking the wrong medication from the dispensary. I had written the prescription. Clearly, none of the interns I'd trained before Julian had ever made such a careless, potentially fatal error. But Julian had ignored my orders, given the patient random drugs, based on his own flawed assumptions. The patient had ended up back in the ER, suffering a severe allergic reaction. As always, I had to clean up his mess, take responsibility. Sophia watched the video, her mouth opening slightly. It took her a moment to find her voice. You never showed me this. I scoffed softly. Show you? Would you have believed me? You would have thought I doctored it, fabricated it just to get rid of him, just to get your attention, wouldn't you? Her gaze dropped, silent, confirming she knew exactly what I meant. I wasn't holding back anymore. Sophia, I said, my voice gentle but firm. From the moment Julian entered our lives, we were on a different path. We can't go back. We aren't right for each other anymore. Stop clinging to something that's already broken. Her body stiffened, a visible tremor running through her. She had been with me for so long, she knew my character. When I made a decision, it was final. I wasn't using divorce as a threat, a negotiating tactic. It's my fault, she conceded, finally, her voice low. I admit it. But you can't just abandon me. We have a son. You haven't even held him. Yet. It was the first time she had ever humbled herself so completely, admitted fault without trying to deflect blame. But it was too late. If you don't sign the divorce papers, I will sue. I repeated, reiterating the facts, emotionless. Our son is an infant. He needs his mother. I won't fight for custody. I laid out the practical details of the separation, the terms that were more than generous. The villa in the western suburbs is yours. You can throw away my things. Don't bother sending them to me. Sophia's head snapped up, her eyes fixed on my face, searching desperately for any sign that I was joking, any hint of the old Ethan. But there was none. Her face fell. You've thought of everything, she whispered, her voice filled with despair. Even how to divide the property. But what about me? Did you think about me? Did you consider my feelings when you decided to divorce me? Do you know how much I suffered? How much pain I endured carrying your child? Other pregnant women have their husbands by their side when they give birth. I didn't. Do you know how scared I was going into that operating room? I was afraid I would die on the table, that our baby wouldn't survive. She was sobbing now, her voice breaking. Didn't you think of me at all? You say you don't love me anymore, but I still love you, Ethan. Her raw anguish, her heart-wrenching sobs, pierced through my carefully constructed defenses, making my chest ache. I turned away, unable to watch her. It took a long moment to regain control, to steady my voice. Do you want to go back home now and sign the divorce papers? I asked, my voice calm flat. Or do you want to stay here, and I'll have my lawyer start the proceedings from abroad? Sarah, who had been a silent witness to the entire scene, looked at me, her expression unreadable. After perhaps 10 minutes, Sophia's sobs subsided, replaced by choked whimpers. Finally, she spoke, defeated. All right, she said, her voice raspy. I'll do as you say. I'll go back to China. I won't bother you here. You don't need to hire a lawyer. She wiped her tears, pulling out her phone and booking a ticket home right in front of me. Sarah went to see Sophia off. I don't know what she said to her, but when Sarah returned, she mentioned that Sophia's attitude towards her seemed to have softened considerably. 2 months later, my project in Africa was completed. I said goodbye to Sarah and the team and took the earliest flight back to China. Sophia, somehow, knew my arrival time. She was waiting at the airport. She looked much thinner than when I had last seen her in Africa, the strain of the past few months etched on her face. She was wearing a thin dress, looking fragile, as if the wind might carry her away. When she saw me, a forced smile appeared on her face. She held out a bouquet of flowers. Welcome back, she said, her eyes wide, trying to convey joy. I didn't take the flowers. My first words were direct, blunt. Have you signed the divorce papers? I stated the legal reality. The cooling-off period is 1 month. If we don't contest it, we can be divorced in a month. The smile on her face vanished. She managed a strained nod. All right, she said, her voice quiet. Whatever you want. Can you come home and see our son? Her voice was small, pleading. I knew why she was asking, hoping the child, seeing me with him, would change my mind. But I agreed anyway. He was my son, my blood, my family. No matter what had happened between Sophia and me, he was innocent. I had longed for his arrival, imagined holding him, being a father. The truth was, I did miss him. We drove back to the house. Nothing seemed to have changed, except for the large wedding photo, previously tucked away in a drawer, now prominently displayed in the living room. I paused, looking at it. The Sophia in that picture had eyes only for me. Soon after, Sophia brought our son out. He was crying in her arms, clearly unused to being held by her. I reached out and took him. The moment I held him, he stopped crying, looking at me, his small fingers wrapping around mine. He giggled, a pure, joyful sound that resonated deep within me. Sophia watched us, carefully observing my reaction. Seeing the ease with which I held him, the natural connection, she finally spoke. Ethan, I know nothing I say now can make you forgive me. Her voice was soft, resigned. But our son is innocent. I don't want him to grow up in a broken home. She met my gaze, her voice gaining a fragile courage. Even if we divorce, will you come back to see him sometimes? I gently rocked our son to sleep, his small body warm and heavy in my arms. To Sophia's request, I simply nodded. I didn't make any promises, didn't offer false hope, but that seemed to be enough for her. A genuine, though sad, smile touched her lips. A month later, the divorce was finalized. It was remarkably calm, peaceful, contrary to the dramatic scenes I had anticipated based on Sophia's character. Walking out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Sophia stopped me. Ethan, she said, her voice low. I'm sorry. About misunderstanding you and Sarah back in Africa. She paused, gathering her courage. Sarah told me, she said, you were like a mentor to her. And that, there's nothing between you two. Because she's engaged to be married. She looked at me, tears welling up again. Ethan, she whispered, her voice breaking. You promised you'd come back and see our son. She began to cry openly. Now, the dam finally breaking. If you marry again, if you have other children, please just forget about our son. Forget about me. With those words, she turned and hurried away, not daring to look back, as if afraid she would change her mind, afraid of what she might see in my eyes. I watched her go. I didn't tell her. I wasn't planning to stay in China. I wouldn't be seeing our son. I looked up at the blue sky, taking a deep, cleansing breath. Ethan Thompson and Sophia Jiang. 10 years. It was finally, irrevocably, over. The end.